right. Well, this is a session that many of you have been waiting for. Some important tips to improve the ventilation in your barns by managing summer heat stress and winter humidity. And sometimes those don't even come in the seasons that we expect them, I think. Our sponsor for this session is Steinbach Hatchery. And guiding us through this topic is a very experienced voice from the world of barns and systems. And that is Ray Funk of Summit Technologies. Now, Raymond grew up on a typical mixed farm of broilers, hogs, and beef in southeastern Manitoba. Think about that. Not too many places would have that same mixture these days. After high school, he began his journey in the poultry world at Carleton Hatcheries, which is now part of Sunrise. From there, he moved on to installing poultry and feeding equipment for several years at Steinbach Mills. Knowing that the livestock and poultry sectors were where he needed to be involved, he decided to get his diploma of agriculture from the University of Manitoba. The bulk of his employment career was spent at Penner Farm Services, where he worked his way from parts sales and shop repairs all the way to project sales. Being a hands-on kind of person, he would test and calibrate all the ventilation systems he sold, whether it was poultry, dairy, or hog facilities. And he found that he enjoyed that so much, it really became a passion. So in 2017, Raymond started Summit Technologies with two partners specializing in innovative ventilation designs and whole barn automation. Can't wait to hear what he's got in store for us. Let's welcome Raymond Funk.
Thank you, Diane. Appreciate that. All right. Okay, so all the ventilation principles are pretty much the same for any species, right? Today I'm gonna, mic's not on? Oh, sorry. Okay, we're gonna talk about ventilation principles in general. They're the same. I'm gonna jump from species to species, not within the poultry, okay? In the interest of time, I might skip over a few slides. We're going to talk about winter and summer, but we'll start with winter. Okay. So winter is pretty simple. Providing oxygen is easy, right? Removing moisture is easy, right? Okay, maybe not. Gases are really there because of the moisture. And we remove dust and contaminants. Dust is important in the fact that it holds a lot of the gas molecules, and they get, I think it's 10 microns down, gets inhaled right deep into the lungs and damages the villi and causes problems. So dust is important, but we're not going to talk about that so much today. Removing moisture in belt barns, you probably know that those are pretty easy to manage. Floor birds are, of course, the challenge. If you have the right tools, getting rid of that moisture and the gases is straightforward. That's why I'm saying it's pretty simple. I know it's a challenge. Humidity is obviously a big challenge in winter. So 60 to 70% of the moisture actually comes from the birds, right? There's not a lot of things we can do other than that, like water leaks, making sure it's actually quite amazing how much moisture leaky nipples make. So if your nipple lines are getting a little bit old, replace the nipples. Burning propane or gas. Propane adds 3 liters of water for 92,000 BTUs, isn't it? So that's a fair chunk too, and uses up 800 cubic feet of air. Okay, so we're gonna look at the stuff that we can control and how to control it. Very straightforward principle, right? Bring in fresh air, warm it up, bring it down to bird level, and it's going to pick up moisture. Warm air holds a lot more moisture than cold air. You'll see the numbers there shortly. But you do need to bring it in, warm it up, get it to the floor or to the manure belts, whatever you're dealing with, and it's going to absorb moisture and you ventilate it out. Okay. It doesn't really matter where your inlets are as long as that air pattern allows it to warm up first, right? Lucky for us, the colder the air is, the drier it is pretty much. And it's incredible how dry prairie air is in winter. And all we got to do is heat it up. So warming it up from 34 degrees to or from minus 23 to 34 is the factor of 68. This slide probably shows it a little better. If we take air in from outside at 100% humidity when it's minus 35 outside, it's single digit humidity when you bring it in or once it's warmed up. Okay, so winter air is incredibly dry. It's easy to dry the barn. All you got to do is heat and exhaust the moisture. Yeah. But that does create another challenge that we have, and that's having the barn too dry when we're starting the chicks, right? Okay. So we have some barns now where we're putting high pressure misting lines on the stir fans. So guys will have high pressure misting for cooling, but we put extra lines on the stir fans with a few nozzles each to bump up the humidity. So Ross's manual, the lowest number is 40% relative humidity. So they suggest rather than starting the birds at 30, we're starting at 36 degrees. And there's an awful lot of barns in Manitoba in winter that are 15 to 25% relative humidity when they warm up the barn. Right. So we're not doing the chicks any favor. They can't, they're getting cold, and you'll see how much moisture, heat they lose by breathing in a little bit later when we're talking about the heat. But consider adding some moisture. The controls now pretty much all control the relative humidity for dehumidification, but some of them also have the humidification cycles in there. So you can actually automatically add the humidity and then keep it in check after. So we have a lot of guys now doing this and, starting at 40 to 50% humidity. And once the birds start producing their own at, a week, 2 weeks old, then, that humidification system's not running anymore. And, you let the moisture build up. So having a curve, I'll show you the curve here shortly. It pretty much automates that humidity process right throughout. There's a few other things that you can do as the stir fans. Having stir fans in the barn pretty much gets all that moisture heat off the ceiling down to the bird level or across your manure belts. Makes a huge difference. I'm not sure how many guys are using stir fans, but pretty much all of our barns do now. Just remember that at floor level when you're starting those chicks, or in the pullet cages too, 30 feet per minute or less is what you need to have. If you're higher than that, you're going to have problems. This is just a slide of a 70 by 430 barn. Day 3, I'm not sure that you can see the temperatures there, but they're all within a degree. 1700 ppm of CO2. Humidity is 46%. Almost ideal conditions. The heaters are zoned. Okay, so zoning heat is important. Stir fan loops. If you're using stir fans, you can set them up in loops too, so that they keep the heat in their zone rather than just going one whole racetrack. So that allows you to heat separately, zone separately, and you can zone your inlets the same way. Just creating more microclimates in the barn. So inlet zoning, when we're at full ventilation, we have to have enough inlets for, the 1 minute, 40-second air change, right? And it's so difficult to control that for minimum ventilation when we want a 1/10 or a 0.15 CFM per bird. And all those inlets are just cracked 1/8 of an inch and trying to keep that equal. Don't do that. Use, 1 out of 3 inlets for winter, or even have a totally different set of inlets for winter, and leave all your other winter inlets cranked right snug. one out of three inlets. Now you can adjust it. It can react a little bit to changes in the barn rather than just trying to have controlled leakage, really. Right. And keep them evenly adjusted. Fans, for the most part, we think of fans being clean and whatever for maximum output. Well, in winter,